Welcome to the first event in this year's Visiting Writer Series. I would like to thank everyone who made this event possible, including Inc., Paulette Labar, the English Department, Dean Rifkin, the School of Humanities and Social Sciences, David Blake, Emily Meixner, Katie Rose Murgy, and the Writing Communities class. Lastly, thank you to WTSR 91.3 for advertising the event. They may re-air parts of this reading later this month. Check it out at their website, WTSR.org. Shelley Jackson's brief autobiography on her extraordinary website, Ineradicable Stain, is anything but ordinary. Shelley Jackson was extracted from the bum leg of a water buffalo in 1963 in the Philippines and grew up complaining in Berkeley, California. Bravely overcoming a chronic pain in her phantom limb, she extracted an AB in art from Stanford and an MFA in creative writing from Brown. She has spent most of her life in used bookstores, smearing unidentified substances on the spines. And she is duly obsessed with books, with paper, with glue, and ink. Nonetheless, she is most widely recognized for an electronic text, Patchwork Girl, a hypertext reworking of the Frankenstein myth, and for Skin, a story published in tattoos on the skin of volunteers. Shelley Jackson is one of our most exciting contemporary fiction writers. Just like her own Patchwork Girl, her work is a melange of parts. Part science fiction, autobiography, mystery, part electronic art, and part page turner. She has helped to push the boundaries of what fiction can be and has made no apology for it. Please allow me in welcoming this wonderfully bent singleton, Ms. Jackson if you're nasty, to the College of New Jersey.
First, I want to tell you something about the stories I'm going to read. I've been asked to read for about 40 minutes, and I think that will be 3 stories, so prepare yourselves. They're all from a series of stories I've been working on that are drawn from a single page of the New York Times. I use the front page and its backside as my vocabulary list, and I create a story using only the words on that page, a way of both kind of generating story material and limiting me in interesting ways. Some of those pieces come out more like poetry than like stories. I'm going to start by reading one that I think sounds like a story. It's a new one that I haven't read before, so you can let me know how it goes. It's called Simon Says. Draw a picture showing a tent city in the mist. Blend black and white for the mist. Add a suggestion of gold as 2 figures run out of the mist, a boy in a cap and a robot in a floral skirt, its eyes gleaming. The boy is short, dark-haired, not smiling. He's clinging to the robot's skirt. The robot is made of steel and leather covered in dust. It's a Series 800, a vintage steam model, as is shown by the mist issuing from its buttonholes. Simon says, make the details sharp and clear, in contrast to the fumes and indecision of the camp. Following them, a cyclone of tribal robots in executive orange. Simon, says the robot, I think I will pick you up and run. Simon says, imitate a robot. Now a line climbs the page. It's the highway, rising through olive farms into the high desert. Robots that work in the fields raise their heads, rotate them to look at the 2 fugitives. The company in orange follows more slowly. At the edge of the reservation, marked by a roadblock of tires and debris, it turns back. Simon says, draw a new picture. It must show an elementary landscape, dusty, white, debris-strewn. The figures moving slowly into it are small in comparison, almost disappearing altogether when they turn off the highway onto a small road leading through dry bushes and a handful of houses in ruins toward the edge of the continent. The trail descends into a harbor. At the edge of the water, the S-800 stops. The boy stands kicking a tire as the robot sucks up seawater. Mom, Simon says, Mom, are you a bandit? The robot raises its head, spewing potable water into a cup from its desalination port. It hands Simon the cup. Clinging to it, Simon smiles at the robot. Mom, are you? Because I'm a bandit. Then I'm a bandit, says the robot, taking the boy's arm. They pick their way through the ruins of the harbor city to a road that leads back into the desert. Simon says, draw the dry hills near the reservation, where a small company of contract killers water their robots at a small well. The master kicks his mount and leads his men up the salt bank. The hunt is on. The robot mount's feet stir the white dust. Heat, salt falling. Take a new page. Draw an explosion of white to represent a rising storm, or just leave the page white. The tracks of the fugitives disappear. Reaching this place, the headhunters will pull up their mounts, stymied. The road itself disappears. The robot takes the boy into its arms and covers his nose with the skirt. Salt sports with the skirt, beats against dry leather and resonant steel. The robot paces on through the numbing white, a patient presidential figure. Its brain is playing back the circumstances. Simon says, now imitate a human. It was summer and the president had a new companion, Helen, number 9, rescued, it was said, from a Balkan genocide suspect, was exquisite. Her nose was Roman, her machinery was Swiss. Her face, smiling, was fair as a sunny afternoon, her arms clinging were as the recovery of health after injury, her feet were as 2 young leopards pacing, and her perfume was of oranges. She was jewelry in motion, and she was toxic, for it was the irresponsible heart of Helen number 9, people say, that led to the circumstances. It is possible that people are not fair to Helen, who did not even have a heart, but a high-performance desalination system. Whose idea were the reprogramming therapies, the rules and checklists? Whose idea was moving day? Not Helen's, not even the president's, though he had a hand in it. It was no one human's. It was not even an idea as such, but a mood, the old divide between man and the race of robot, reopened. Workers, whose jobs, they said, robots had taken, protested in the street. Robots were jeered at parties by people chanting, "Robot, robot." Rarely now did anybody stop to help an injured robot, to offer oil or vocabulary. Robots, except very basic household machines, and people of robot descent were expelled from human cities and relocated to reservations in the Netherlands. The human incumbents held the world. Simon says, rotate the page and draw a slow line across it, showing how the robots in single file left the cities. Rules? No robot may profit from a human's loss. No robot may dispute the policies put in place after the circumstances. No robot may imitate a human smile. The mixed race are to identify themselves for cleanup. The death of a robot is not death. The storm slowly clears. Stillness, silence, a landscape stripped of plants, and very nearly of place. Simon says, draw a line from here to there, dividing the page into 2 parts, one white, one blue. In the center, draw a mother and child half buried in salt. You will recognize the tableau from art history, though the mother is a mother only because Simon says so. A robot has no gender. The child raises his hand to his mother's battered steel face, plays with her nose, which is slowly rotating. Are we lost, says Simon. We are not, says the robot. If you are not very tired, I would suggest that we make tracks. The fugitives come to a new camp. Displaced robots doze, slump against a wall, battered, dented, dusty. They raise their eyes, numbly register the new additions, look away. Simon says, draw a human kicking a robot, make the lines sharp and black. Troubled, Simon says, why is that human kicking that robot? The robot pulls him on. The robot is accused of technology, artificial intelligence, and promoting mechanical government. Come on. They go past a robot that's having a tea party for lawmakers and headhunters in its tarp-covered shanty. Steam from the tea, steam from the robot. Mist from the steaming robots haunting the shanty camp. Tents like Alps in the mist. Silence, oppression, fields of dust, the sipping of tea. Clinging to a model soldier, a robot covered in dust slumps against a wall. A robot that looks like Andy Warhol dozes in a latrine. A robot that looks like Barney is performing for several spectators a pop cover of The Leopard Has a Heart, the one that goes robot, probot, conbot, prebot, dbot, xbot, cybot, halfbot, unbot, incumbot, rebot, mebot. Why are we here, says Simon. I need oil, don't look up. The robot pulls the boy's caps down over his cap and withdraws 5 cups of olive oil from the bank, paying with dusty human money it takes from its skirt. Spilling into the robot's container, the oil looks like strong tea. Come on, don't lag. We need to reach the edge of the reservation by sunset. They go by a fugitive being questioned, a suicide being buried. Don't look, eyes down, even pace. Robots ravaged by plutonium doping nod intense. A robot getting her period runs amok, kicking up dust and belching exhaust. Diesel fumes overwhelm the hackers trying to contain it, positioning tires as bumpers. The fugitives avert their faces. Still, people and robots turn to look. The boy is out of place here, like a leopard in a laboratory. Face brilliant with intelligence, Simon scrutinizes the S-800. How come robots have to live here, Simon says. After the circumstances, the state mandated apartheid, said the robot. Machines are machines, they said, and humans are humans. They have hearts, not computers. Don't robots have hearts, says Simon. I have a heart. You're mixed race, says the robot, part human. Which part is which? Bedtime, says the robot, picking up the boy. Now it's not even sunset. How about a story? Is it about a boy, Simon says? A boy fell down a well and called Simon? A boy called Simon fell down a well and came up in a place where stories are made of very small robots that line up on a page and make designs with their hands and feet. And then he fell down a well in that country and came up in a place where boys are made of very small robots in floral skirts. And then he fell down a well in that country and came up in a place where robots are made of boys in blue caps. And then he fell down a well in that country and came up in a place where robots and boys are made of stories. Like what stories? Like the story about a boy called Simon who fell down a well and came up in a great desert made of salt, where a boy called Simon was asking a robot for a bedtime story about a boy called Simon who fell down a well. Simon smiles, his eyes are closing. The robot moves on, the tent city dozes. The white hills of salt will be still greater tomorrow. A gathering of tribal elders, their chronographs slow, their dented bezels rotating, sip seawater, steam playing from their exhausts, salt spilling from their mechanical parts. A Federal Reserve priest from Series 78 is chanting, "History is history is history." An exhausted look crosses its vintage monitor. The monitor goes black. Framed in it, you can make out for a minute your eye. The sunset slowly sours into night. Off in Washington, the human city, robots kick in their stalls in anticipation of feeding time. The boy slumps in the robot's arms. He's intact and gleaming. He fits as if he had evolved there, as if he were an autonomous part of the robot, a freelance heart. A tarp over a bush, the mechanical fugitive pacing slow rings around it. A robot appears out of the night. Its brilliant eyes are blue topaz. Its leather miniskirt is leopard printed. "How do you do?" says Helen. "You." I wonder, do the robot S-800 and the robot Helen have a history? If not, they hit it off fast. Helen strips down to her shift, which is made of steel. Rotating, she shows her assets. The S-800 follows her with its eyes, but does not move or register indecision. Night is a laboratory for them. They play Simon Says, taking turns. Later, Helen and the S-800 have an ethical debate. Things are said. An eye for an eye. Dust to dust. Why can't human and robot go Dutch? There's interference between the spectrum of ideas and the spectrum of language.